I can start again.
Oh, if you need it.
Okay. That's the one I have. Big print. Thanks. Are we good? Okay. All right, so we'll call to order. Metro Vancouver Transit Police respects Indigenous nations within Metro Vancouver and acknowledges all First Nation, Inuit, and Métis people for their continued resilience, sustainable stewardship, and as active members of the community for generations to come. We recognize that working within and managing the region's transportation system, we do have a role to play in supporting reconciliation with Indigenous peoples. All right, let's get started. First item up is consent agenda. There is a long list there. Anybody need to pull anything from consent? Okay, I'm just gonna pull F just to make a quick statement about that. Great. So can I get a motion to accept the consent agenda less F?
I think, did you want
Yeah. Okay, good.
I was going to, but I got it.
So just wanted to make a quick statement about F. That is the uniform policy. So we have made a change to it. So after review of feedback from our communities and in support of reconciliation, we have amended the policy, and we are prohibiting the use of the thin blue line patch. The policy's been adjusted accordingly, so it's in your package. So it's gone through governance. So that's what we were approving today. So can I get a motion to accept F? Thank you. Second, all in favor? All right. Any public delegations, Terry? On to Dean. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome. We're going to talk about the Fleetwood Business Improvement Association.
Yeah.
Great. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for giving me the time to speak. It's an important role that I play in Fleetwood, representing the community, representing the businesses. And I'm just going to tell you a quick story here. If you look at the presentation behind me, you're looking southeast down Fraser Highway. And what you see on really clear days is Mount Baker. It's iconic. And if you look at a map of the Greater Vancouver area, it's the only road, Fraser Highway is the only road that is diagonal. Most roads are, it's the only road that's diagonal. Do you know why? For thousands of years, First Nations, before the diking system was built, would travel up the flood areas, up 176. They'd park their canoes, and they would take the game trail, which became Fraser Highway, up through the Great Green Forest of green timbers and down to underneath the Patella Bridge and underneath the Alex Fraser, where some of the largest First Nations populations were living. They'd also use the mountains as a way to figure out where they were. They didn't have Google Maps. And the mountains play a pivotal role in how First Nations found themselves, how they traveled. So Mount Cheam, Golden Ears, Mount Baker, Mount Rainier, there's no borders. And so Fraser Highway was initially a game trail, and it's just stuck that way. So if we can go to the next slide. And so what's important to know about that is that iconic view, we talk about oral history and written history. Well, First Nations is visual history, whether it's in art, culture, visual history. Well, Mount Baker is an important visual, has important visual impact. And it's important to note that SkyTrain's coming down Fraser Highway, blocking that iconic view, to the point where TransLink actually made the conscious decision to move the SkyTrain to the north part of Fraser Highway to not obstruct the view versus going straight down Fraser Highway. So I'm happy to say that we fought for that. So just a brief history, Fleetwood, over 100 years old. The Community Association turns 100 this year. It's based on, I talked about First Nations Trail for Mountains. Fraser Highway was the original Trans-Canada Highway prior to 1964 when Port Mann Bridge opened. Prior to that, Fraser Highway was a burgeoning community of farmers, of businesses, and to this day, there are 400 businesses, 5,000 jobs. A lot of those businesses have been around for generations. In fact, places like Gander Taxidermy has been around for 55 years. these businesses kind of went into a time capsule in 1968 after the Port Mann Bridge opened, and there's been little to no development in Fleetwood in the better part of the last 55 years. Development's coming, we know that. It's coming fast. And the other thing to understand is that we also have a lot of underdeveloped and undeveloped land. So we're not talking about, you know, a house that's been torn down. We're talking acres and acres of land that's undeveloped. In 2016, TransLink, the province, City of Surrey, was proud to say that we were getting light rail. Light rail was coming, and light rail was going to start with the L line, which was downtown Surrey to Guildford, and then downtown Surrey to Newton. And then the second phase of that was the light rail down Fraser Highway to Langley. In 2019, an election promise was made by Doug McCallum. Mayor McCallum got in, and we were getting SkyTrain. What's important to note about that is that the original plan and the original land use plan stated that Fraser Highway through down through Fleetwood and into Clayton was designed to be mid-rise, mid-use, mixed use, so 8 stories. There was going to be density, obviously transit-oriented density, and that's how the community wanted it to be. They weren't fighting for SkyTrain. What ends up happening is we get SkyTrain, and the city has to go back to the drawing board with their planning, and what was supposed to be 8 to 12 stories is now 36 to 40 stories are coming into the community. Now, the land use plan has not been adopted yet for stage 2, but the applications are starting to come in, and if you've ever driven down Fraser Highway, you'll note that there's no high rises. There's nothing over. The tallest building in Fleetwood is the Ecom Tower on 156. So there's really nothing over 6 to 8 stories coming in. What you see in this map here is Fleetwood. It's kind of a little bit blurred. Fleetwood is, if you want to look on a map, it's like to the north, 86 or 96, sorry, to the south, it's ALR. To the east is ALR towards 176, and about 148 on the east side of Green Timbers. That's Fleetwood, about 66,000 people. The area you see in the blue there, that's the catchment area that the BIA represents. So it's a really funny, it looks like you're lifting weights there. It's about 120 properties. Like I said, 400 businesses and 5,000 jobs. Thanks. So, like I said, light rail was coming, and this was the plan. And a lot of people didn't know this. So when former Mayor McCallum was planning the SkyTrain thing, what a lot of people didn't understand with light rail was that there actually was a plan for a network of 150, 160 kilometers of rail to connect all the town centers, which is it's actually what Surrey needed. The SkyTrain, all due respect, isn't going to solve the problems when you can't get a bus in Cloverdale, right? And so when Mayor McCallum at the time was campaigning, he was trying to convince everybody that the ideology of 1986 was the best direction to go. And this is what ended up happening. But what happens now is that the 1.65 billion, which is, when it's all said and done, it'll be about 5 billion, now it drains the purse of TransLink in the province for more infrastructure projects moving forward in the next 2 decades. But that was the original plan, was to have a network to connect the 6 town centers in Surrey. And one thing to make note of is there is 6 town centers in Surrey. Very unique. We have a city center and the 6 town centers. You've got Guildford, you've got Fleetwood, you've got Cloverdale, you've got South Surrey, you've got Scott Road, and then you've got City Center, Whalley. So they're all considered town centers of different development. And important is that in order for the business case to work, you need to have 10,000 residents within 800 meters of a SkyTrain station. Why that's important is currently in Fleetwood, where the 3 proposed stations are, there's not even 100 residents within 800 meters of a SkyTrain station. A lot of small businesses and vacant land. So you can imagine the impacts when the first application that's coming to council and has been approved, Bucci is the property development. They've originally proposed 5 towers in the 40 to 50 story range. We're talking 5,000 units. It's been scaled back to 3 towers. I want to say 37, 35, and 18, I believe it is. Large mixed use. It's gorgeous. No doubt about it. Lots of opportunity, lots of retail. But that's what's coming to Fleetwood. That 66,000 people that are currently living in Fleetwood is projected to be 120,000 in 10 years. And I can tell you that I've seen some of the proposed applications that are coming in. I'll get you to go to the next slide. Some of the proposed applications are large. They're thousands of units. So right here is the map, and you can see the big red is the stations, proposed stations. The first one that hits Fleetwood is at 152. 152 is a very, very important strategic road because it connects to the north Guildford, to the south White Rock. It's going to be a major hub. The fire hall that's currently on 152 is being relocated. If you go a little bit further east down the corridor to 160th, you have the heart of the city, the heart of Fleetwood. And you go a little bit further down, you see the sports and leisure, the rec center, the pools, ice rinks. That'll be the third station in Fleetwood. And like I said, currently there's not a lot of development around the area currently. So and there's the town center. And if you look at the town center, and you look at that map, if you notice the top right-hand side, there's 6 acres of vacant land. If you look to the left, to upper left-hand corner, that mobile home park no longer exists. It's now a number of 8-story residential that's currently being built by Dawson Sawyer. It'll bring in about 6,000 people when it's completed. And so you can see there's a lot of green space there that's going to be high rises within the next decade. So why I'm here is to impress upon everybody that we understand on the ground change is coming. I talk to the businesses, we talk to the community, we talk to the seniors. Obviously, we deal with the Board of Trade and other community groups within the community. And one of the biggest fears that people have is that SkyTrain is going to bring crime. Whether that's true or not, I mean, the studies say it may or may not from what we've seen. But we know that this is coming. The second thing is that we share District 2 with the RCMP. District 2 RCMP is Guildford and Fleetwood. And the Fleetwood calls are minuscule. I mean, outside of recent events, which technically weren't quite in Fleetwood, the biggest complaint that somebody has is the catalytic converter being stolen. That's the concern, that's Fleetwood. But when we did our homeless count a couple of weeks back, it was 2. We don't have the social services. We don't have the things that bring people into the community like that. Our businesses, the 400 businesses, most of them small businesses, they employ, their customers live within, 75% of their customers live or work within 2 kilometers of the business. The rest of the people that shop there are going through. They're not, or residents that live there, or their commuters and tradesmen going through. People don't come to Fleetwood yet. And so we don't have the crime challenges that Newton or Cloverdale or City Center has. My budget, Philip, who runs the Newton BIA, his budget, 45% of his budget goes to public safety. The only thing that we do for public safety, well, the only thing we do, but our budget's minuscule towards it. We do a thing called, RCMP has a thing called Project Iris. And what it is if you put cameras in your business outward facing, and you register them with the RCMP under the Project Iris, we'll rebate you money. And so we're building a network of cameras to help with public safety and help work with the RCMP to be able to identify perpetrators who, whether it's graffiti or whether it's B&Es, but again, we don't have a lot of that in our area. And so my job now is to work with the stakeholders to let everybody know that we know this is coming and the community is concerned about it's coming. And it's going to start it's not going to start when SkyTrain is operational in 2028. It's going to start during the construction phase. It's going to start when these big developments are happening, and then pretty soon criminals are coming in and they're going to be robbing the yards and the workers and the construction workers. And this is going to be all the stuff that everyone's talking to me about in the community, and it's real. And the other thing to be aware of is that we've been petitioning the RCMP police services to a lesser extent to come to the community more often. Because when you see a police car in Fleetwood, it's a problem. And a great story, last September we had our movie night in Francis Park, and we had 500 people, families, all there for the movie night. And the RCMP were across the street dealing with an incident, and then after the incident, they came over to the park, these 3 officers, and came in, had some popcorn, talked to the kids, and it was a really amazing interaction to watch that and see all the kids talking to the police officers. And it was just a real cool interaction to see that. I'd like to see more of that in our community. I'd like to see, I've told the RCMP, or Surrey Police, if you want to do bike patrols around here on a Saturday, on a beautiful day, just to be seen, get comfortable with being in the community, because I got a feeling you're going to be spending more time in our community than you ever thought you would. And so I said, you can use my office, store your bikes in my office. I don't care, but my goal is to really build these relationships and put Fleetwood on the map. The next one you're going to be hearing from, it doesn't really exist yet, but Clayton Heights will be probably the next group of people. They've just got a brand new community association, and Clayton has more vacant land than Fleetwood does. And it's going to be pretty much the same challenges there on the border there of Langley and North Cloverdale. So that's my presentation. I'm just going to say that was projected to be the prior to where we are now with the land use plan. That was the corner of 152 and Fraser Highway. And if you go to the next one, and again, these are just proposed. And then that would be the intersection at 160th and Fraser Highway. Picture high rises around there, but that's in essence of what the would look like. And I think I said this earlier, but the SkyTrain originally was supposed to go down the middle of the road, and we petitioned to have them move it to the north side so it doesn't interfere with the view of Mount Baker. So my ask in leaving is, if you have any questions, great, but as a part of long-term strategic planning, and I've said it here with the community committee as well, is that there needs to be an awareness and an acknowledgement that we're getting 16 kilometers of SkyTrain through into Langley, and through areas that traditionally haven't had real crime issues. And whether it's Clayton or whether it's Fleetwood, we know that people will be coming in from other communities. They'll be coming into Park and Ride. They'll be coming into through a brand new bus network that doesn't currently exist because it's not there yet. But we know that we're going to be bringing in not just people that live there. We're going to be bringing in people from all over, and we just want to make sure that we're being heard, that everybody knows that there's concerns in the community, and we're doing everything that we can on the ground to mitigate those concerns. So
That's great.
any questions?
Yeah, go ahead, George.
Thank you for the presentation, and just looking at it, it kind of reminds me of what down the Canada line, like Marine, where there wasn't anything there. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, there's going to be a lot. But there's a lot of other amenities and stuff that are being built. Just with the planning that you're talking about in Fleetwood area, beyond the housing that's going to go in, are there plans for schools, college campus, other social things that is going to create more of a community as opposed to just a transit hub? Yeah, so a couple of things, and these are questions we've been asking as well. So under the current system, our schools are at capacity, right? So the province has identified we need 8 more schools in the area by the time everything gets done. The interesting thing about SkyTrain is that it's, for the most part, it's built from asset to asset, so YVR to downtown Vancouver. And the one thing that's common along all these lines is the large shopping mall, the destination. So in Fleetwood, we're kind of like an Edmonds or an Ioko, like there's not anything there. And so what you're going to see and you hear a lot of is called the 15-minute neighborhood. And what's going to happen is these SkyTrain stations are going to be, in Fleetwood in particular, you're going to actually see 3 distinct neighborhoods being built. West Fleetwood Village, East Fleetwood Village, and the heart of the city. And within those, what we're working with the development community is we're trying to identify types of assets, businesses, post-secondary, culinary, whatever that is, that creates a community within that area. The challenge that we have is that we are 3 kilometers, 4 kilometers from what will become the largest shopping asset south of the Fraser, which is Guildford Town Centre. When Guildford and Ivanhoe Cambridge finally develops, we're talking on the north part of the property, 12 to 18 towers. They're going to go through a major overhaul
Overall, thank you. And then the same thing's gonna happen down at Willowbrook. And so we won't be able to attract some of those retailers, some of those businesses, because brick and mortar it's a huge business. So you're gonna start to see the footprints of whether it's banks, whether it's retail, you're gonna see them start to shrink to fit the community versus trying to be these big box. So one of the challenges we're gonna have is that we don't have that type of an asset on the line. And when you're talking medtech, you're talking post-secondary, they're already at city center. So we've been pounding the pavement even pre-COVID, trying to talk to the different groups. We've been working with economic development to try to ensure that we have the right mix of resident and business and office. I mean, when COVID hit, after the first, when they named, the government came out and said, okay, these are essential businesses. Well, in Fleetwood, 75% of the businesses were deemed essential and were open. During COVID, we lost 2 businesses. During COVID, we gained 34. When downtowns were shutting down, because why? Because we do not have non-essential retail. You want to get your hair done? You want to get a massage? You want to go to physiotherapy? You want to eat out at fast food? I can give you all that. You want to buy a pair of socks? Can't do it. So this is a part of the adjustment that we have to go through by attracting, bringing in different types of businesses, small businesses, to be able to address some of these needs so that these 15-minute neighborhoods have the things. And then we have to be able to, and this is the key thing, statistically, if you live in Langley or east of Langley, less than 4% of the population actually commutes over a bridge. In Surrey, meaning that 4% of that population east of Surrey Center goes across the bridge into Vancouver and to other areas. For the most part, people in the region south of the Fraser live, work, or now will be educated south of the Fraser, which is why we need that infrastructure to connect the town centers. Because, like you'll hear Paul from the Cloverdale BIA tell you, we're talking about autonomous motor vehicles and all these things. We can't get a bus in Cloverdale. It's once an hour. So these are real issues in the area, in the community. But we are to kind of put a stamp on your question. We have lots of concerns about schools, about the road network. I mean, there's large areas where there's no sidewalks. You go down 88 and there's a bike lane, and I have a picture that it shows a guy with a stroller going down. There's no sidewalks in the bike lane, and big rigs are going by 80 kilometers an hour. Not real safe. We brought the city out and the public safety people out. We sat there for 15 minutes watching stuff like this happen, people trying to cross the road. And that's the reality of what's happening there and why we're concerned about all this stuff happening. So, any other questions?
Sure, go ahead, Chief.
No, first I want to thank Dean, and for those who are not aware, he is part of the Transit Police Chiefs Community Council, and obviously this is the type of interaction we like throughout the region, and it gives us that awareness as to what's happening, and of course having that type of in-depth knowledge and expertise, I want to call it, of bringing it here, has allowed us, as we know that the transit system's being developed here, to plan for hub offices, policing presence in the stations, at the right locations, and having that input. I mean, the infrastructure, and Deputy Ferland will bring up some of it. It allows us to look at how we'll deploy in the area, whether it be by foot, whether it be on the system, whether it be by other methods of transit. Again, I want to take away some of the thunder out. So it's all being planned for as we look at it and liaise with the design of the system. And it is unique, as we say, like the transit system, which moves through everything, goes from both, like you say, an international airport to a downtown core to residential-based communities, and it'll have the longest stretch going through the agricultural land reserve. Yeah. Not that it has a stop there, but in terms of it landing us in Langley, which will also have its own unique challenges in that. But just let you know that what we've heard, and we've had this presentation, which makes it valuable to bring it here, is that he's been able to bring that to the Transit Police Community Council, which allowed us to input these measures and what we're hearing into our planning and requests for as the system is developed.
Yeah.
No, that's great.
And the nice thing, just to close, the nice thing, and I'm really, really proud of, is that myself and Brianna Berman, who's the Community Association President, we spent, historically, this would not necessarily be a BIA thing. BIAs are public safety, area enhancement, shop local. But we felt, and my board felt, it was really important to be on the ground during this process. And so we had a really good relationship with TransLink during the LRT, and we still have a great relationship with TCOR and with TransLink now. Kevin's been out at our office a couple of times already, and I'm proud to say that whether it's within the city, whether it's Mayor Locke and Council, whether it's Planning Department, Public Safety, RCMP, Surrey Police, we've been able to really establish a really good rapport with everybody, and that makes it a lot easier. Where I know some of my counterparts are really struggling, particularly on the Broadway line, because they don't have those relationships. So it's, I'm trying to be, and we're trying to be really proactive in this process, and we've been welcomed and always happy to share information. And as things come down, I'll be reaching out.
Oh, that's great, yeah. And thanks for participating on the council. That's important. It's a great way to share your concerns. Thank you very much, Dean.
I'm going to leave some cards here.
Yeah, sure. And you're welcome to stay for the meeting as well.
Yeah, or not.
Hey, put you on the opposite side of the room.
Yeah, I was sitting there originally, right by the door.
I love it. I was gonna ask, are you the only, BIA member that sits on the Chiefs Council, or are there other?
I think there's somebody else, or
There used to be the North Road.
Sorry, the New Westminster is also,
Yeah, that's right.
Karina is also part of the BIA for the New Westminster area, so she's also on the community council.
Yeah, it seems like an effect. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Great. Next item on the agenda is the Chief Officer Report.
So, thank you, Madam Chair. We'll defer that right now into the operations and administrative update.
Good morning, everyone, Madam Chair and board members. So just, Inspector Huber is not here today, so I'm going to go ahead and do the squad updates for him. In terms of our administrative and training side on the squad, so we just had 5 recruits graduate, class 168 on March 10th. So happy to have them deployed out with our members. And we also have 4 recruits planned for the May JIBC intake. In March 2023, patrol supervisors participated in a tabletop exercise with regard to handling protest and interruption to service on the West Coast Express. Since our last police board meeting, we've had 10 naloxone deployments, so I think that we're continuing to see a regular uptick in this, and can't say enough for actually our members and also even our volunteers being able to have naloxone available is saving significant lives on the system. And I believe we saved one like yesterday on CDR as well. Mental health apprehensions since our last board meeting is 14. And I know Dean had just mentioned it in terms of bike patrol, so we're just conducting that training now and getting the last pieces of equipment. We had anticipated a bike patrol, actually when I first started here, I think in about 2020, but of course due to COVID, that was delayed. So we're looking to have a deployment of bike patrol members, hopefully by May, out on the system, which I think will just allow, again, greater visibility of our membership and just a little bit more flexibility in being able to move from place to place and even bus loops. So we're looking forward to having that bike patrol deployed out. Just to give you a few files of note, and there's been many, but this is just kind of a variety of some of the files that we've been dealing with. So a mischief file where we were called to the West Coast Express, and this was a suspect spray painting multiple cars. It seems like a minor issue, but it's actually significantly costly. This was in the thousands and thousands of dollars of graffiti on a number of cars. Luckily, we were able to attend and take the person into custody and charge him with mischief over $5,000. And as well as part of those release conditions was to not be in the area of the West Coast Express. In mid-March, we attended a weapon call at Burquois Sky Police Station. We had received a report of a male with a gun, but a gun that was not actually firing. It looked like so it ended up that we did indeed locate that person, and at the same time, that subject was actually overdosing. So all of this was kind of happening at the same time. managed a gun call, and then realized that the subject overdosing being called upon was actually also our suspect in the gun call. So we were able to actually get that subject the medical attention that he needed, and then follow up later with the charges with the weapon. And it ended up being, as we do see it often, a replica style airsoft gun that was actually the weapon that he had with him. Again, mental health crisis, so I think this is something that we regularly are dealing with. So this was just in late March. We noted, the SkyTrain attendant noted on the camera, so SkyTrain control, that there was a subject entering into the tracks at Brentwood Station and then actually walking along the tracks to the Gilmore Station. So SkyTrain attendant was able to keep visual contact while transit police attended, and then of course power down the tracks and stop all the trains. So ourselves, along with our counterparts at Burnaby and Vancouver Police, responded, and we were able to locate the subject, who was about 100 yards away, with what was a weapon, later determined to be a plastic sword. And using a less lethal option, the R1, we were able to take the subject into custody and actually apprehended under the Mental Health Act and transported to hospital for care. And then one last one was just a stranger assault that we had on the Production Way Station. And the subject of that was also had a standing warrant, so we were able to apprehend for that and transport to Vancouver Police where the outstanding warrant was from. And that is just, a very high-level overview of just some of the varied calls that we've been seeing since our last board meeting. And I think we understand that it's been a really busy weekend, so our members continue to deploy in high-visibility vests in support of transit safety and safety of our users on the system. I'm going to pass it over to Inspector Chris Mullen for the Investigations Division's update.
Good morning, everyone. Since the last reporting, I'll start off with our General Investigations Unit. Take on several investigations, including an investigation where a suspect committed a serious bodily harm on a bus, leading to charges of attempt murder and aggravated assault. That investigation was later taken on by our partners at the Integrated National Security Enforcement Team, and charges of terrorism have been approved at the federal level. The unit's also taken on 3 sex assault investigations, a robbery with a firearm investigation, and has assisted Patrol Division with a fraud investigation where a search warrant was conducted and key evidence obtained. They've also taken on recently a serious assault investigation where one of our members was slashed with a knife. No injury to her, but to her coat, and several charges are being recommended on that investigation. They continue to prepare disclosure on a double fatal motor vehicle accident that occurred last year. We're just awaiting key evidence from our RCMP experts. Jay continues to assist Patrol Division and outside jurisdictional police departments with gathering evidence in the form of CCTV and compass data to attempt to identify suspects. And just on the training front, 3 of our members attended the Sandwich Police Department and took a file coordination course. The quality of the course was excellent, so we're going to be looking to hosting the course here in Vancouver in the coming months to train all of our members and potentially some other members from outside JPDs. On to the crime suppression team. So CST continues to work on a longer-term drug investigation in collaboration with the Surrey RCMP and BPD. They assisted the Surrey RCMP with a search warrant execution of a problem residence that was known to have firearms and drugs within. The suspect in this investigation is known to transit police members for hanging around transit property, including a number of the Surrey SkyTrain stations. And that warrant was successful in obtaining a number of evidence, drugs and guns and whatnot. So another search warrant was executed by CST at a residence very close to the Scott Road SkyTrain station, suspected of housing a number of property crime suspects. These suspects were known for committing break-and-enters and catalytic conversion thefts. And so the search warrant was executed with the assistance of Surrey, RCMP and Delta PD, and resulted in a seizure of about $35,000 worth of stolen property and thousands of dollars in contraband cigarettes. With respect to our criminal intelligence unit, they continue to assist internal units and external partners with identification of suspects. Since last reporting, they've identified 33 suspects. They continue to liaise with our jurisdictional policing partners and attending numerous meetings on that front. And they also have recently, they of course continue to support our General Investigations Unit and Crime Suppression Team with the files they have ongoing. And thanks to Vancouver for hosting them for 3 days to provide training in the area of cell phone tracking and analysis. And that's it from me. Pass it over to Inspector Day, or now DCC Mayor.
All right, I'm wearing two hats today, so I'm going to report on our operations support section. So I'll start with the community engagement team. So for just high-level updates there. First, just on the bike patrols, 4 members of our community engagement team will be taking that training. So another unique way for us to engage with community. Secondly, we always like to talk about the Blue Eagles. It's a program we're really proud of. We've got over 70 participants in the program from the 22 to 23 season. We've talked about the Waterfront CPC, and we're happy that the posting for the volunteer lead will be closing on April 25th, so we'll look forward to filling that position. And just fourthly, encampments across the Lower Mainland. We continue to work with other JPDs as well as other agencies to effectively address those situations and ensure supports are in place. With our K9 unit, we continue to explore opportunities for integrated training. We did a joint exercise with EPD. A lot of this is in preparation for a major event and things like FIFA that are coming. And with IPDS, we're scheduled for some joint training with them in May 2023. Our Community Safety Officer program continues to go on track for a June 2023 start date. I will share, as there are in all areas of the organization in terms of recruitment, we are facing some challenges in that area, but the team's continuing to look at innovative ways as we are as executives to determine next steps in that regard. TMAT, again, they are down a number of resources, but they continue just to do outstanding work. That's our Target Mobile Enforcement team. And just this reporting period, just to kind of give an idea of scope, they work with 8 public safety partners and 5 different activities. One we were going to highlight is a commercial vehicle check, and that was conducted with 15 law enforcement personnel and Ridge Meadows RCMP, and it resulted in over 40 commercial vehicles taking out of service for vehicle infractions. And just the drone project, we have completed a project charter in regards to that, and we continue to move forward. And finally, our Operations Communications Center, we're continuing to build our disaster response plan and strategies for that. And I will now just give an update on the Administrative Services Division. I'll start first with the finance section. Our Translic Enterprise year-end financial statements audit with KPMG is concluded, and there were no audit adjustments or management letter points. We are also adapting. There is a new enterprise resource planning system that went into place. So just compliments to our manager in finance, Jancy Lung. She continues to work us through this new process and system in collaboration with TransLink. From HR, the Employment Wellness and Ability Management launched an annual All-Employment Wellness Challenge, and that has lots of different monthly challenges, fitness testings, and rewards for participation for our employees. And the morale survey is scheduled to be launched in June of 2023. Just updating briefly, and it's a newly created position on February 28th, the member, and it's a sergeant in charge of member support and development. That position, we're just looking at what are our 30, 60, kind of 90-day sort of, plans and what we look to do in the future. But just very briefly at a high level, just outstanding work already in that position. I think it shows the value of it. The officer's been involved in reintegration of 2 members who were off on long-term disability and working collaboratively with HR and the training unit on that. And as also part of those responsibilities will be our CISM program. So it's coordinated CISM debriefs for 5 separate critical incidents, which has been really important. And he's currently supporting recruits at our JIPC as well. So look forward to continuing to update on that position. Over to our administrative support section. We're underway facilities, developing renovation plans and improvements for our waterfront hub office as well as Bridgeport deployment office. And the recruiting unit, we have 2 new lateral officers who have joined us in this reporting period. And our training unit is busy with our annual recertification training for use of force, less lethal, and firearms. From the information technology section, there was a duo presentation going to be happening today. It's been moved to the next police board meeting where we'll get you, some of you are, but others signed up for the system, but we're 90% completed in the rollout. And significant fiber optic upgrades at 3 different locations across the Lower Mainland. They are very taxing on our team. But they continue to work to complete those. And just finally, at a very high level, and great to see support in place for our frontline officers in terms of upgrades to not only printers, but computers, dual screens, and all kinds of equipment at the different hub and substations. And also supporting the IT team is a new full-time service desk analysis, and that's just seen, an immediate impact on the team there. And that's it.
So before we leave the ops reports, I do want to, of course, make comments on some of the recent activities that we've seen and incidents that have occurred. And I know we may discuss this more in a closed type session, but I do want to acknowledge a lot that's been said in both the media and been reported. We've seen 4 significant incidents that have been reported. And each of them, we can assure you in looking at them that are not related, tied together in any manner, such as they are not related to the gang conflict. They appear to be individual acts that have occurred, between various individuals with no connection to each other. There's been a lot reported on this, and, we want to reassure that, we were actually tracking, and I don't want to just use stats as an excuse in that, but generally we were tracking, I would call, in a positive direction with calls for service and incidents that were happening on and around all the forms of systems and that. And we do our kind of data in regards to, you've seen it before, raw numbers is one thing, and the amount of incidents per 100,000 ridership numbers, which we do comparables to look at what we're doing. So a lot of what we focus on are key locations through, we like to say that we're, leading an intelligence-led policing initiatives, right? Looking at where we need to be, looking at who we should be targeting, looking at potentially locations that are of more important, are going to draw calls for service. We don't want to suddenly come out with suddenly a heavy hand that looks like it's going to impact, a certain group of individuals or people who unfairly in terms of that, which is why responses have to be measured and have to be planned. And also we want to look at being sustainable. So in the cases we know that out of the 4 incidents that occurred, 2 individuals are already in custody on those matters. Liaising with the other jurisdictional police partners, I'd say I'm satisfied that all the other investigations are progressing in a positive direction. And we're looking for those trends and reassurances, again, whether it's an individual act, whether it's an act of randomness, whether there's a problem in an area, whether there are contributing factors that may come into play as this. So we will look at the issues, whether it include things such as mental health or homelessness, or, and when I say this, is to whether people need supports or what other things we can do even outside enforcement that will sustain and support things. In the interim, measures have been put in place. There are long-term enhancements. We've talked about the CSO program, which is progressing, and we need to ensure that it comes into play. It will hopefully deliver to us additional bodies and frontline. There's a re-emphasizing our education, when I say educational aspects, such as our texting services, about being able to text us and have live monitored texting that individuals need to know throughout the system, whether it be the West Coast Express, the bus, the C-bus. It's a very unique service we provide where you can actually, and we understand that whole idea of almost anonymity. Everyone has a phone in their hands, and to be seen texting, it doesn't draw the attention of perhaps making a phone call, which you can also do, but it is there. So looking to really emphasize this and campaign, probably get out in front of it and campaign this message about how to be safe, making sure you report things that you believe make you uncomfortable, make it, you feel that, there's some concern about yourself or perhaps the welfare of others in terms of it as well. And we have increased and looked at it. You've heard a lot of what different units have been doing, and of course the board meets quarterly, so you're hearing some of the stuff. But recently, a lot of the initiatives and individual units within the department, focus has been turned onto the system in terms of it. So in other words, there's lots of important work to do. It's all having to be reprioritized right now, so that the focus right now is being in some of those areas, is ensuring that both that the education is being delivered, that the members are present and visible in these locations, while we consider what are the next steps towards sustainability in terms of what is the long-term impact for what we do. Because there's a lot of what happens in policing, that isn't even reported here, such as what the neighborhood police officers do. We know that members are out in communities, such as, we've just gone through Ramadan, and how our members are out speaking in those communities and being visible and educating well away from the system perhaps, but providing that level of who the transit police are and how the transit system is safe and what those safety features are that are in place for it in terms of it. But we've been able to take those resources and make sure it's in a more visible presence in this manner while we explore it. So, I would say to the board, and there could be some more dialogue as some of this has happened, that, there's been this spat of we'll call more serious incidents that have drawn attention at this point in time. There isn't a connection to anything of a concerning nature that says this is like gang related. It's not associated to that. And that we will, as we look to examine it, we'll be looking at the long-term impacts and initiatives that we can put in place that will hopefully sustain, improve, and keep going in terms of making it safe. I continue to emphasize, we look at our data, we know our information, and our goal, of course, is to make transit and transit hubs places of safety within the community. So I can never emphasize enough the idea that you're never alone with basically you're on the transit system, right? Whether it be other passengers, whether it be station attendants, employees, bus drivers, transit security, police officers. There are thousands of cameras throughout the system that, make it where we reported prior that our general investigation unit has an 89% success rate in identifying people. So we have those things in place. It's how are we going to emphasize this so that there's a sustainability going forward. So I didn't want to leave the reports with probably the biggest topic in the media that's going on here today in the open without coming forward and saying that we see it. And I appreciate, and I would like to say, the support we've received and information we receive from all the enterprise partners within TransLink, and including the government, the public safety minister, up to the premier and them, who have expressed their concern and support for things. And in reality, we need to make sure anything we look at is measured, because I don't want people getting concerned that we're suddenly going to just go start targeting certain individuals or groups of individuals. That's not going to happen. We need to be led in what are the areas and what is the long-term safety measures that can be put in place that will make it and continue to make it safe for people to ride the system. And when you really think about it, there are hundreds of thousands of trips, and I think at the peak, and I'll be corrected, at the peak of ridership prior to COVID, there were over like 1 million journeys a day. And so when we look at the number of incidents, again, I don't want to play on stats, because one serious incident, such as the loss of life in Surrey, is too much as to what happened, and stats are not there for that purpose there. But we will continue to work towards, I guess, if that target zero, if it's achievable, we'll see, right? It may be hard, but we'll keep targeting that to make it and continue to make it one of the safest places to be.
Great. Thank you so much for that. Are there any questions from the board? Yep, go ahead, George.
So, two questions. One is, hearing what you've just said, and to the whole leadership team, I mean, we know how tough it is. I mean, it's not isolated. A day doesn't go by. Throughout Metro Vancouver and other cities and the issues that are there, what I think I know personally I find concerning, I mean, I got 3 daughters. I watch the news in the daytime. I feel comfortable, but I won't take SkyTrain at night, or I won't take a bus at night. And so to your point where you talked about all the different partners that you've got within the enterprise, the security folks and everything else, what's happening to be able to maybe work in a more coordinated way? I understand how the transit police operate, but with all these other groups, that is very confusing for a lot of people. The people that run around with their little vests on that are information officers, or they could be cleaners in some cases when you're on a transit facility stand or something like that. But how do you see this going forward to solve a lot of this perception? Because that is the real issue out there for a lot of people, is they don't feel safe. How do you coordinate better as an organization with your partners, and what is being done in that regard?
So there is within the TransLink structure, it's an integrated safety and security, and I'll forget the last 2 letters of it, right, group that it has been established, and it's exactly for that. It's the coordinated delivery of activities and events, and includes into that the messaging system. It has been where we have different areas of the organization that may have it. So in other words, SkyTrain has station attendants that are customer service orientated, but what's important for people to know is they are eyes and ears that are, and by the way, they are and will report things like in an immediate manner in terms of it. So it's not always about whether you're a safety or security person or a police officer. It's that ability to somebody to report it or to identify what's happened. So as we've been moving towards looking at the structures, bringing it more in alignment, is ensuring that there's an information exchange of what activities and events and what enforcement or deployment resources are occurring, whether it be on a weekly basis and that. It has been, as you can imagine, in any larger organization where we have varying, I will call enterprise partners in terms of it, who have identified there's a policing role, which is kind of an all-encompassing, but certain operating companies have created their needs within what they have there, and we need to just make sure we start tying it together so it's efficient and effective. One, that we don't overlap and spend too much time in one location, and that we know what activities are occurring and how we can complement each other. So that has been occurring over the last while. It goes back a bit. There was a safety audit done several years ago that has been, it's probably dated to some degree at this point, but it has been reviewed, and as you look at it now, you have the support of it with some coordination occurring, being provided by TransLink as the main provider in terms of that kind of, here's a coordinator, comes out of safety, comes out of your operational safety group and that. So what's needed when we get into times like this is to update, if we want to call it, or pick up the pace on how often they meet and interact. We know who we need to talk to. So when things happen this week, we already know that our operations inspector has reached out and spoke to all those different enterprise partners who we know are already identified and at the table, and ensuring that now, more than ever, we need to make sure that information is flowing and is occurring. So the short answer is, it's being developed how we coordinate it better. It's being in the current format that we have, right? And under the current structures that we have, we're doing that. If there was ever any look at something different, remember I said long-term sustainability, that would come out with a recommendation at that end. Much like I would say how the transit police is evolving with police officers and now community safety officers, we're looking at how we deliver our services in the long term and how we can impact on issues such as just visibility, whether it be specializing in mental health or dealing with being able to provide services where people focus on certain aspects of prevention as opposed to enforcement.
Good. My second question was answered
Oh,
in the way that you answered back. Thanks.
only I could pick the lottery numbers.
Great. That's great. Any other questions? Good. No, that was great. Thanks for the update and appreciate the written summary of it too, to that kind of digest that. That was great. All right, next item on the agenda is report from the Chair of the Finance Committee.
Yeah, there were two items on the consent agenda that relate to the Finance Committee. The year-end financial operating results for 2022, and the amended Finance Committee terms of reference. And with respect to the year-end financial results for 2022, we have a negative variance of about $1.12 million, primarily related to the way that bank time is accrued. And so it's fairly significant. And the second element that was significant was vehicle expenses. We weren't able to receive new vehicles during 2022. And as a result, repair costs were higher and fuel costs were higher as well as a result of the things that are going on on an international basis. So at this point in time, the question was asked whether our 2023 budget properly reflects what we expect 2023 to look like for accruals, service costs for vehicles, training costs for the JI, and other more incidental costs. And I understand, based on that dialogue, that the 2023 budget has taken into account the deficits that were occurred in 2022. So I don't anticipate reporting next year at this time a deficit to the same extent or at all that we are reporting today on the 2022 year-end results. The second thing that the committee discussed was the Finance and Audit Committee terms of reference. And there was only one change recommended, and it's a simple change. It was just a quorum of the committee shall consist of, rather than 2 board members, it says consists of the majority of the committee. And I think that's the same change in other committees as well.
Yeah.
So we've been able to add a member or 2 to each of the committees, and so it makes more sense to reference majority rather than consistent.
Yeah.
So that's my report.
Great. Any questions for Marie?
I should add one thing, sorry, the TransLink allocated costs, the budget, there's 2 elements to the TransLink, or the Transit Police Service budget. There's our operating budget, which relates to the deficit I just referenced. And TransLink also has an allocated costs that are attributed to the Transit Police Service. And as a result of, I understand, renegotiated leases and expanded space for the Transit Police Service, our allocated cost budget had an overrun of about $566,000 as well. It was anticipated to occur, but the timing of it wasn't certain. So now we're incurring those costs, and that will be taken into account in the 2023 budget as well, or it has been taken into account.
Okay.
So sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. Any questions for Marie? Great, all good. Okay, next report is from the Chair of the Governance. George.
Just refer you to the minutes. There were a couple of things, the policy items, and our chair mentioned that at the outset, the most significant related to the thin blue line, but also we included respectful workplace policy discussion as well at the Governance Committee, and have been doing some further work on that in the last committee meeting as well, and we'll probably be reporting out on some additional things. The continuous board training in 2023 is really important. I mean, we're all busy. We've all got various commitments. We know all the different things are going on, but to be a better board and to ensure that we are providing the type of civilian oversight that we need and understanding some of the communities and so on better, we need to continue to commit both time and resources to that. Which both are tight, we know that. We also encourage, I think, any of our police leadership who go to different meetings and associations, if there are things out there that you have found interesting, if you could pass them along to us in terms of training or whatever, we're open to those ideas. We want our meetings to be effective both as a board, but also on a governance committee, finance, as well as, obviously, the HR committee. Also in the consent agenda, there was a presentation, it was item 1.6 in the consent agenda, but it was the discussion led by Stephen Crosby, and we had Sergeant Cheryl Deeks also talking about the strategic pillars around strengthening support of Indigenous people. Very significant measured progress has been made. It continues to be. We're delighted that Cheryl is actually working with TransLink and providing them some insights that perhaps weren't available before through this secondment, but also for us as a board to understand that as part of our strategy going forward and our commitment to that reconciliation side, that we continue to have a focus. It doesn't just become a placeholder in an agenda meeting. It isn't something that skipped over. We take it seriously as a board, and we'll continue to do so and bring forward other ideas that may tie back into some of the training as well. But just generally, again, I think by measuring and the way, Stephen, you're reporting out on that with some of the materials, it keeps our eye on the ball. Thank you.
Yeah, that was a helpful report and summary, Stephen, for that. Great. Next item up is the ECOM Board of Directors nominations. So this is a rotating board position, and George has filled it for 1 year and willing to pick up for the second year. All in favor?
Yeah.
Yep. We appreciate that, George. Thank you. And all the great information you bring back as well and fill us in on what's going there. That's great.
Congratulations.
All right. So George is appointed as for a second year there. Next up is the CAPG Annual Conference, an AGM. It will be held in St. John's, Newfoundland in August this year. So there is a call out for resolutions, and that was in the package if we want to make a resolution. And then we also have to decide if any of the board members will attend, in person or virtual. So there is a virtual option this year, Taryn? Okay, great. All right, so that's in middle of August. So is there anybody that knows now whether they'd be able to attend, or do you want to just let Taryn know once you've looked at your schedules and can see?
Can I say that I think if you can't make it in person, the virtual, it's you can pick and choose. And I believe, Taryn, in the past, it's one of those things where we buy a package, and so it encompasses the entire board basically. And even if you just want to come in for a session or two, it works fairly well.
Yeah.
The thing that's missing is that personal interaction. I think especially now with the issues that are out there with police boards where you don't have the coffee chat around it. And I know Murray's been to the BC Association one, and that's the type of thing that is good where you hear things. But I would certainly encourage everybody to participate virtually.
Sure.
And then maybe we can have a discussion about attendance if anybody's going to be going. But I think we need to be active.
Yeah.
I mean, we're a really good organization, but again, it goes back to that training piece that I think that we need to be around people that probably are better than us actually in a lot of these areas and learn stuff from them.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. And maybe, Taryn, you can forward the information on the virtual part so we can check that. I know it's in middle of August there, so vacation to work around.
Has the agenda been set? Is there?
I would assume so by now.
Well, it's part of the package.
Was there?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's in your other email that you can't get into.
can't open the closed one.
Okay, so we'll all take a look at that and plan accordingly. And if anyone is interested in participating in person, then we can talk about that. I know it's a fair trek. It's out Newfoundland this time, so.
It's a good one.
And Madam Chair, is there any thoughts of staff are contemplating going?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, just kind of one. Thank you.
Hey, They used to try to run these
Yeah.
in conjunction with the
Yeah.
chiefs of police, but certain provinces don't have police boards, such as Quebec. It falls out of alignment, so generally you'll find staff may attend when they're close to each other. And maybe in my younger days, which means a long time ago, we're okay to make the trips from like one end of the country to the other to do things, but the chiefs conference is occurring just immediately before or after this date,
Immediately after.
immediately after in Ottawa, so
Yeah.
you end up with this traveling dichotomies, right?
Yeah.
As to where to be.
Yeah.
Thank you.
CATT has the same problem as BCATV, in that they don't have a lot of resources. So
Right.
it tends to be stretched. But I would say, it would be nice to have someone attend, just for the sake of
Yeah,
keeping our face on the map, so to speak.
right.
But virtually, virtually is good as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, Taryn we can take a look at that.
You get motion or not?
Well, do you want to approve the virtual right now, or do you want to?
Yeah,
wait
let's,
until-
let's approve that, yeah.
I'll move the,
Second.
virtual package.
Okay, George will second.
And if somebody wants to attend, in person, should we leave that to the next meeting? Or do you want to move it now?
I think we can, yeah, we can say if somebody wants to now, and then we can arrange it, because I think there's a little bit of prep time needed.
Yeah.
So if we leave it too late, yeah.
So we just combine that.
For one, yeah, for one director, yeah, exactly. Okay, and then we can talk about that to the side, that's great. Okay, next item is the BC Association of Police Boards. So this is, appointment of our representative, which, Marie has been doing. Continuing to do it?
Yeah, prepared to continue. I noticed that there's sort of a substitute as well that needs to be identified, and I don't know who that was. Was that you, Marty, this year?
I don't know if we had an alternate.
I had one for,
Okay.
I think Ally was her last alternate.
Okay.
It's been a couple of years.
So I'm wondering, why don't, then I should move it because we're talking.
Yeah.
But I think it's not a bad idea, because I'm not gonna be able to attend, a meeting this summer that's scheduled when I'm in Winnipeg. So, it would be nice to have the alternate attend at that time, so someone's available to serve.
Okay.
I'll nominate Bill.
Gee, thanks.
Just to
One more
move things
made.
along here.
Good,
Is it in-
very efficient.
I thought Carla.
Oh, yeah, is it virtual, or is it, the
In person?
summer? Is it virtual?
They alternate, one, sort of every second meeting is virtual, every second meeting is in person, so,
They Victoria? They do Victoria sometimes, or is it, I know they,
when they're held in person, they're typically held in, the Lower Mainland, one time, and on the island.
right, they go back and forth.
Okay,
Okay.
okay. All right, so that's great. So, so we can have a motion to have Marie, and then, Bill, are you okay with being alternate?
Yeah, if I'm not, unless you want to.
Yeah, Carla's got her hand up, so.
Nominating, yeah.
Sure, I'll accept.
Okay, great, thank you. Great. All in favor? All right, great. All right, that brings us to the end of the open agenda. Our next meeting is scheduled for June 23rd at 9 a.m. Close it off at 10 a.m. Thanks, everyone.
Great.
We do have the